You're going to showboat, knock down the shot.
For what his value is, he doesn't equate to winning basketball.
Because when you're talking about the greatest of greats, that's what you have to do. You have to nitpick.
We'll see you in the playoffs. See you in the playoffs.
Welcome back to the Tee 'em Up podcast. I'm joined here, as always, by my co-host, Jarrett Huff, who's from a hotel internet right now. So we'll see how well this goes. But hopefully it'll be enough to get us through this episode, this podcast. So, Jarrett, how you doing, man?
I'm pretty good. We're working remote today. I'm out in Iowa. Well, basically Omaha, Nebraska for a wedding for one of my close friends. Nice. Shout out to you, Andrew Alsack. Congrats on your upcoming wedding. So, that's what I'm doing right now. So Definitely. That is why I'm in a hotel.
Definitely should be a fun time, but I'll go ahead and transition to, it wasn't a fun time for Miami just a few days ago. By now, pretty much everybody who's a fan of the NBA saw the bench argument that happened. Looks like it was between Udonis Haslem and Eric Spoelstra on one side and Jimmy Butler. I mean, you could say pretty much the entire Miami Heat roster against Jimmy Butler there is what it kind of seemed like. You know, good guy PJ Tucker picking up the clipboard, if anybody saw that. But Jarrett, after seeing this argument, knowing Jimmy Butler's history, you especially more than a lot of people being a Bulls fan, what's your level of concern seeing this? Is this something? Is this nothing? What are we looking at?
I have some concern. Miami seemed like it was the best situation for Jimmy Butler post Minnesota and Philadelphia, just because the classic Heat culture and just some of the guys on the roster you would feel like fit Miami's or Jimmy Butler's mentality of like hardworking players, want to win, want to grind. And I mean, obviously Jimmy Butler seems frustrated. I don't know why specifically. Miami hasn't been playing too well lately. It was back-to-back losses, which has kind of been uncommon for them this season. So there could be frustration boiling over with that, but fighting with your coach, who's probably one of the most respected coaches around the league, and like wanting to physically confront him, that's concerning. I don't know what's going on with Jimmy Butler. I hope this is being blown up more just because it's some more of a spectacle to see on an NBA sideline. But just given Jimmy's history, you can't necessarily just brush this off as just a player being heated. Like this was pretty big, and with Butler, nothing's ever really small. So I just hope for your case, and because I'm still a Jimmy Butler fan, if Chicago we would gladly take him back tomorrow. But it's concerning to me. How do you feel about it?
I'm going to be honest with you. To me, this is nothing. I have zero level of concern from this, and you could just say, Jace, you're just being a Miami Heat fan. You don't want to see your team fall apart. I love Jimmy Butler. I love the way that he plays. But I have a few reasons why I feel like my level of concern for this has to be zero. One, I'm going back to the quotes he had before that game. He was doing an interview where he said winning a championship to him, essentially, I'm just paraphrasing, is the most important thing in his life. That's the most important thing in his basketball career, what he focuses on, which is what most players should focus on. That's the ultimate goal. You want to win a championship. And he said that in the past, he's kind of just zoned in on that and not really focused on a lot of the other things. And he kind of saw himself doing that. So I see this as a way of him kind of breaking out a little bit where, yes, the focus is still on winning a championship. He was letting some frustrations out. And I think Eric Spoelstra is the type of coach it's okay. Like, it's okay to do this against, or maybe not against, but do this with. Eric Spoelstra was giving it right back to him. Eric Spoelstra was not just, get him out of my face, get him in the locker room. No, Eric Spoelstra was giving it right back to him, and Jimmy Butler went right back on the court right after the timeout. So that's, to me, this team, it's okay to do that with to a certain extent. Obviously, you never want to go overboard. You don't want to be that team that's always fighting people getting hurt in practice. Nothing like that. But Miami doesn't have fragile egos. They're not a team that has this superstar mentality where, like, we saw a few years ago, Draymond Green and Kevin Durant got into a fight, and that ended up being the reason Kevin Durant left the Golden State Warriors. This team, Jimmy Butler, Kyle Lowry, Bam Adebayo, PJ Tucker, Tyler Hero, they're not fragile. Like they've none of them have shown that they're fragile egos. I would be concerned if this was other teams, but I think Spo is so well respected. I think he knows how to coach his stars. He knows how to get in the mind of them. He knows how to manage it. I mean, this guy managed the Heatles. Like, he knows all about big egos. He knows all about these big stars. I think they're probably fine today. I think they're just chilling at practice today, back to normal. If this is the way that I see it, I think, like you said, frustrations boiled over. It was a couple of bad games, and Miami's holding themselves, especially this year, to such a high standard that they haven't been playing up to it over these last few games, and that was frustrating. But I just think the leadership on this team is hard to overturn, and I love to see that intensity. And I know it's the Heat culture, and I know, love it or hate it, you're like, is it a real thing? Is it just, branding? Is it marketing? I think it, to a certain extent, it's a real thing. And I think with Miami, with these group of guys, with Eric Spoelstra, this is okay to do. I mean, that's just the way that I see it.
Well, it's a story we're definitely going to be probably following for the rest of the season through the playoffs and potentially into the off season, if it's anything. Hopefully, I'm hoping for my guy Jimmy, and I guess for you too. I guess whatever, fine. That it's just a bunch of smoke.
Oh, it will be. It will be. And a lot of people were jumping the gun and saying that, oh, he's not re-signing, he's not coming back. Okay, let's calm down. This is Jimmy Butler. He's a very, he's not a hothead. I would not say that. He's a very passionate player, and he expects his teammates to uphold their end of the bargain. And I think moving forward, Miami's going to benefit from it. I truly do. So, speaking of a player who benefited from a recent change, Kyrie's coming back. Kyrie's coming back full time. They changed the mandate in New York City. So what does this mean for the Nets that he can now play in Brooklyn? Does it change your opinion? What do you feel the ceiling of this team is?
Well, it's definitely going to help in a playoff series, especially for whatever reason. Somehow Brooklyn has like the higher seed in the series, which is unlikely at this point, but you never know. Kyrie's now available for all 7 games in the playoff series, except if they go up against Toronto somehow, whether it's through the play-in or if the seeding shakes out to where maybe somehow both teams made it to the second round, which I can't see happening.
No.
But just hypothetically, Toronto's restrictions are still pretty strict. So, but this is probably a scenario we won't have to worry about anyway. Having a player of Kyrie's caliber available is huge, especially as the Nets look to kind of move up. I mean, maybe they want to stay as the 8th seed and just take out the 1st seed now, which would be either your Heat or it could be Philadelphia or Milwaukee, because it's within, I believe, a game now for all 3 of those teams. So yeah, I think that this doesn't necessarily raise the Nets ceiling. It's just if there's a playoff situation where it's going to be a close series, it definitely helps the Nets a lot.
And I truly don't think this changes too much for me. I really don't. I think the Brooklyn Nets they went under the radar media wise because for the majority of the season, we've just focused on how overhyped and how disappointing the Lakers have been. But in my mind, as much as the Lakers have sucked, and they still suck, the Nets are just as bad in a sense. They have tremendous talent, and obviously they've gotten a lot of, the headlines with Kyrie, his big scoring outputs. But to me, this roster is just not good, and they suck on defense, dude. Like a couple nights ago, KD gave them 35 points. Kyrie gave them 43, and they lost by 12 to the Grizzlies without Ja Morant. Like, they scored 120 points, but gave up 132 points. Like, they're so bad on the defensive end. Kevin Durant's out there playing 40 minutes, and credit to him, he's so efficient. He makes it look so easy. Kyrie is one of the most gifted scorers this league has probably ever seen. I just don't think they have the talent around them. They don't have a team. They have who on that roster, or if anyone, could you consider a defensive stop? Like who's the guy we're putting him on the best guy? Who's a wing defender on that team? I don't even know. I don't know what they have moving forward. And in the playoffs, I get it. Kevin Durant is probably going to score 40 points a night. And Kyrie or Irving might score 35, 40 points a night. But where are those other points coming from, and who's stopping the best guys on the other end? I like them in the play-in tournament, but it's very possible they could be traveling to Toronto to play for the 7th seed. So they might lose that game just because they might not have Kyrie if everything stays the way that it is right now. So I don't know, man. To be honest, if they both end up in the same position as far as going into the playoffs, I think more teams would be scared to face a healthy Lakers in the playoffs than they would to face the healthy Nets. I'm just saying.
See, I disagree with that.
I think so.
I understand why you're comparing them to the Lakers, but the big difference has been that Brooklyn Stars, despite their limited availability, have been able to elevate and lead their depleted roster much better than the Lakers and vice versa. I like the players on the Lakers better behind LeBron and Anthony Davis than I do the Nets, aside from like LaMarcus Aldridge. I think the talent on that Lakers roster is better. It's just for whatever reason they can't put it together. Whereas even though Kyrie was gone for half the season, James Harden was just feeling some Houston, like wanting to leave Houston vibes, just like last season. Kevin Durant was able to power that team to win after win after win. I mean, that team was first in the East before Kevin Durant got hurt. So
I understand that, but during that stretch,
I'd much rather face the Lakers.
During that, you mean the Nets? You'd much rather.
No, I'd much rather face the Lakers.
Got you. During that stretch, though, James Harden was playing pretty well. He wasn't giving you 30 points a night. He was a 20 and 10 guy. He was a distributor. Kevin Durant, obviously, he was doing what he does best. But I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm interested to see. I still think AD's probably played more, but I don't think he's played much more games than Kyrie at this point in the season. I don't know how those numbers stack up. AD's been out a long time. Like, he was out for a month and a half, came back for maybe 2 weeks, and has now been out for another month and a half. Like, he's missed such a huge part of this season, where I think if he comes back, he could have possibly there's this one little thing in the back of the Lakers heads where if he comes back and he treats the end of the season, they get into the playoffs. Obviously, I hate if they have a first-round matchup against Phoenix. I think they lose that regardless. But if they can possibly have Memphis, I think with a healthy AD, he can kind of treat it like a bubble season where we saw he was dominating in the bubble. He had those 3 months off. If he can come back healthy and you could only need a month and a half of health from him instead of an entire season, that could be scary, especially if LeBron's doing what he's been doing. I've given up on Russ. I don't expect much from him, which he's played better recently. But
yeah, no, I don't think AD is going to make that big of a difference to the Lakers' fortunes this season. I've always been kind of out on AD as a player, like supremely talented. Don't get me wrong, but he's always been overrated. He's done nothing in the playoffs until he teamed up with LeBron. And if you think about it, it's only been 1 year. And it's so annoying how this turned into a Laker conversation. Yeah. But that's just what I guess some of the NBA topics seem to turn into. Davis, for one, should not have been on the top 75 all time. And to where even people that voted for that list are coming out and saying, yeah, I have no clue what I'm doing. Seeing like some of the names that didn't make the list. And now I feel bad because I figured they would have been voted. Mm-hmm. But Anthony Davis just hasn't really proved that he can be like a star in the playoffs. I mean, it's like the same way people look at like, that Heat team, like good for them for making the bubble finals, but that Heat team wasn't that good. And in the normal season, they might not have went that far. Sorry, but that's what a lot of people think. I think the same thing about Anthony Davis.
I get a lot of people think that, but
if it's under a normal setting in 2020, normal playoffs atmosphere, I don't see Anthony Davis having as dominant of a run in that 2020 playoffs as he did. And I'm going to stick by that. Anthony Davis is not going to change the Lakers' fortunes much if he comes back. They'll be lucky to make the playoffs because I think they're going to fail in the play-in. There's a chance they won't even make the play-in. Because
that's definitely on the table. Yeah.
The Spurs aren't far behind.
100% that's on the table. I'm not saying,
the Pelicans actually might be ahead of them right now.
They are now. So. Yeah, they passed them last night. Yeah. No, it's we have to move on, but I will say, the Miami, everybody talks about it was a fluke. They did beat, the number 3 seed on the way there. They beat the number 1 seed on the way there. They were taking over the top teams in the East who had just enough of a chance to get the NBA Finals. Guess what? Giannis wasn't ready yet. Couldn't get there, came back the next year motivated and won a championship. So I don't think it was a fluke as much as
I'm not hating on your Heat. I'm just
I know. I just got to throw that in there, but we got to move on, man. So I thought it would be an interesting kind of topic as we're sort of approaching playoff seedings are starting to get figured out. I think there's only like 10 games or something for most teams remaining in the season. So I thought we'd go through and just kind of in your opinion, I told you to list down 3 players or coaches that you feel have the most to prove this coming postseason. So let's just go 1 for 1 on this one. So go ahead and give me your first player or coach you feel like has the most pressure on them for this season, this postseason.
Well, I think the biggest person in the NBA that has the most to prove this postseason has to be Doc Rivers. I
Okay.
mean, the how they fell apart to the Hawks last season is beyond me. Ben Simmons making questionable plays offensively, being too scared of the moment. But even if Ben Simmons is failing, like, you have to make adjustments. You have to be able to outcoach a team that's relying on a sole engine of Trae Young to propel them. Doc Rivers has melted down in spectacular fashion so many times. I mean, he is the NBA record holder for blown 3-1 leads in playoff series. That dates back all the way to when he was the Magic head coach. It's the reason why he's not in Los Angeles anymore. And in Philly, he's really out of excuses because right now he has arguably the best center in the NBA, who's arguably the MVP. You have James Harden, a supposedly motivated James Harden, because apparently he's wanted to be in Philly all along, even though we had all those quotes of, oh, yes, I've been trying to get to Brooklyn out of, but whatever. He has Harden and he has Joel Embiid. That should be enough to get you out of the East, no question, especially with a decent crop of guys behind him. I mean, they got tons of role players. Tobias Harris, when he wants to be good, is good. It's a deep team through like the first 10 guys, and he has no excuse. There has to be results, or we could see Doc on his way to another city.
Dude, I am so glad you went with Doc Rivers because we have not talked about it at one point on this podcast yet, but I'm part of that hype train where everybody talks about Doc Rivers is cemented himself as one of the best coaches, at least present, maybe not in the history, but
I think he got top 15 honors.
The way I look at it, dude, like, are we sure? Like, why? Like, what has he done? I mean, he's got that championship in Boston, and he has ridden that thing, man. He has ridden that championship all the way to
cashing a lot of residuals.
He's 2022, and we were still talking about that Celtics championship, the last one they were able to get, man. I was just really happy to hear you say
what happens when you win in a big city that's been in a drought.
That's very true.
But I have to say, though, he did turn that Clippers thing around.
He did. He just couldn't get over the hump. He had some great Clippers team, though.
Yeah.
Speaking of former Clippers, my first most pressurized player, I'm going with Chris Paul.
Really?
I'm going with Chris Paul for a few reasons. Everybody wants to see, pretty much everybody would love to see Chris Paul get a ring. I don't think you're going to get unless, they're beating your favorite team, unless, depending on who they're going up against. Everybody loves Chris Paul. I mean, this guy, he's been such a steward of the game. He's been a tremendous guy. Everybody loves the State Farm commercials. He's one of those faces of the league. Such a nice dude. I think he was president of the Players Association for quite some time. I would love to see him get a chip. And let's be honest, he's running out of time. This could possibly be the best team he's ever had around him. And I'm even taking into consideration those Clippers teams that were really good with young Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan was at the top of his game. I think is the best chance that Chris Paul is going to have to win a championship in the history of his career. I think he's running out of time. And I think he's with a squad right now. I think because they lost in the finals last year, man, it's a lot of young guys that want to get back there. And they realize that you don't get to the finals every year. Like, it's not a given that you're going to get there. They got there last year and they got beat, and they were up on Milwaukee. I think they were up 2-0 before they dropped the entire series. Yeah. So they know what it takes now to win a championship, and they just have to go out there and do it. And to be honest, I think them playing without Chris Paul since the All-Star break, I know he just came back last night, looked really good. I think 18 points, 14 assists, just what he does. I think this is his best chance to win a championship. I think the pressure is on because he's up there at he's basically the same age as LeBron, who doesn't have that playoff resume underneath him. So I think the pressure is on Chris Paul this year to get that championship.
Yeah. I would disagree so much that, like, I don't think there's outside pressure on him. I just think if there's any pressure on him, it's all internalized. Yeah. Because basically the way I see it, his legacy, it's pretty Loctite.
Oh, it is. He's missing one thing.
Yeah, the ring, of course,
He
is the
will
only
tell
thing.
you. He will
Yes.
tell you, I'm missing one thing. I
Yes.
want a ring. And I
Yeah.
think this is his best chance to get it.
Yeah. I see what you're saying, but the way I just interpreted the question, I wouldn't necessarily put Paul on that list just because he made the finals last year and he's on the best team right now. So I'm not stressing too much
No,
about
you're good.
CP3.
I just go with how many years do we have left? How many years does he have left? Yeah.
But once the Bulls playoff run is done, I am full going like go team Chris Paul.
Oh,
Let's
I'd love
go.
to see it.
Just like I was
I'd
last
love
year.
to see it. Yeah. I'd
Sorry,
love to
Milwaukee.
See it. Who you got as your second player or coach?
My second player, well, my second person is James Harden.
Okay.
It's like, all right, you're out of Houston, and now you're on Brooklyn with, in my opinion, the best player in the NBA right now, Kevin Durant, and another pretty good player in Kyrie Irving. All right, we get it. Kyrie Irving's a bit of a diva. We get that his whole vaccine stance makes no sense, especially with its detriment to the team. That just defies all logic and is honestly selfish for a number of reasons. So you're unhappy. You force your way out of Brooklyn, even though that was probably your best chance to win a championship. And you landed Philly with one of the front runners for MVP and a great coach riding the waves of the 2008 Celtics championship.
Still riding.
You have no excuses. You have a coach with the experience to get you to the finals, despite what some people may say. You have a player that can take over in games when maybe you're just having an off night. And you're playing in a system that allows you to have the ball in your hand. You have the perfect pick and roll partner. Some people are already comparing you to Kobe and Shaq, which I think is ridiculous, but you guys could be on that level of some of the better guard center combos that we've ever seen in the league. If there's a time for you to win an NBA championship, James Harden, it's this season. There's no excuses. We're not going to accept any excuse if you flame out or if you put up a poor performance in, like, this team should be making the conference finals. It should be Milwaukee and Philadelphia. If those are my picks. Or if not Milwaukee, Brooklyn and Philadelphia. Philadelphia should be the lock in my eyes for the Eastern Conference Finals. Joel Embiid's just playing way too well.
Yeah.
And I would have said Philly was a lock before Harden.
Yeah, he's played great.
But now with James Harden, no excuses. James Harden has to get it done this year. He has to show us something we haven't seen him do before. A lot of pressure on him.
I respect that. I think it's a good pick. And for my second one, I'm going to go with James Harden's former running mate. I think there's a lot of pressure on Kyrie Irving. And the reason I feel there's a lot of pressure on Kyrie, because that excuse is gone. The vaccine thing was kind of a built-in excuse in my mind that it's now gone. He got it lifted. He got his way. He's going to be able to be unvaccinated. He's going to be able to play in everywhere besides Toronto. I think the narrative, I think there's a lot of people that are Kyrie supporters, and I wouldn't consider myself a Kyrie hater in any sense. I just think the decision he made was not a good one. I think it was a detriment to his team. But I think years from now, if he doesn't go out there and perform, and this team doesn't actually do a lot making Eastern Conference Finals, making NBA Finals, I think 2 to 3, 4, 5 years from now, we're going to look back on this season and we're going to go, man, if Kyrie would have got vaccinated, man, that team, the talent on that team, they should have gone so far. If Kyrie would have done this, if Kyrie would have done that. That's the way that I think this could possibly turn if he doesn't hold up his end of the deal. And Kevin Durant has held up his end of the deal. When he's been on the court, he's been amazing. Absolutely fantastic. And people think because I'm such a LeBron guy that I'm not a big KD fan. I didn't like the move that he made way back to go to the Warriors, but I'm way past that. I'm not holding on to grudges. Dude is a tremendous player. I think for Kyrie, his stop in Boston, the whole, if you'll have me back, I'll resign here, jumping ship, going with his friend Kevin Durant being hurt their first year there. Now that we're going on year 3 of this kind of Nets situation, he's had such of a lack of success since he left LeBron playoff wise. We got to see something, Kyrie. Like, I get it. I think your excuses are gone now. I think you have to go out there, you have to perform. You're going to be able to be there for an entire 7-game series. There's no excuses. You are well rested. In a sense, you've been able to continue to run with your team, playing twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever. Go and just win games, Kyrie. That's what I want to see. I don't want to hear any more vaccine talk from him. I don't want to hear any more, well, if this, that, or the other. Just go win. The excuses are gone. Your team's going to be in the playoffs regardless of where you're seeding. You're probably going to be considered a favorite by a lot of people, even if you come in as a 7th seed. So I think, Kyrie, your excuses are gone. Just go perform. Go win. That's the way that I see it.
All right. I want to throw out a quick honorable mention right now to Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, just because they're kind of in like middle of the ground of like the playoff contenders in the West, in terms of this has been basically the same unit for years and years and years, and they're really not improving, and they're not doing stuff to put them over like the rising teams like Phoenix or put them ahead of mainstays like Golden State and stuff like that. So they need to figure it out, especially with these two reportedly feuding. My third person is Ben Simmons. Now, this may amount to nothing because he could be out for the rest of the season with whatever back issue he's dealing with, because he still has yet to take the court. Although I heard reports that he is practicing with the team, I believe, in Miami. He's at practice. But okay, the likelihood of Philadelphia and Brooklyn meeting the playoffs this year, pretty damn high. It could be a first-round matchup. Ben Simmons is going to have to play in the playoffs in Philly at some point. And basically his career got derailed because of the playoffs. He's going to have to get back up on the horse. He's an NBA player. Your new team, Brooklyn, has invested a lot in you to bring you here, to put their faith in you, to help bolster their weaker roster that's been missing a player like you all season. Ben Simmons has the potential to be one of the best talents of his generation. I mean, he came into the NBA with LeBron comparisons. Now, clearly, I don't think he's ever going to reach that potential, but he has potential to continue to be an all NBA talent. And with all this time off away from basketball, we need to see improvements made in his game, whether it's his skills on the court, like his shooting, or his shots from the free throw line, which, hey, after my workout, I set the free throw line for like an hour and I shoot free throws. So there's no excuse why this man can't be getting better at it when he's been sitting all month waiting to get out of Philadelphia, or not all month, all year.
All year.
He has to put it together because he could be potentially a dangerous two-way player. I'm not saying he's going to be an elite three-point shooter, but if he finds a jump shot, he's going to be one of the more difficult players to play against and so much more valuable to his franchise.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I just think he's done. I don't think he's playing this season the way that I see it. I don't foresee him coming back. So but everything you said, if he comes back, I agree with 100%. I just don't see it happening. But for my final player, I'm going to go Luka Doncic. And it's maybe not for the reason that you might think. Luka Doncic, his per game playoff numbers are absolutely insane. Like, he has historic playoff numbers so far, and he's only been able to play the Clippers. And that means all these numbers he's put up have been with two of the best wing defenders in the NBA guarding him the entire time in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. Because he hasn't made the second round yet, because he keeps matching up against those Clippers in the first round, and he just keeps pushing them to game 7, can't get over the hump. And I understand that. I think, and I made a TikTok about this, and I got a little pushback. I think Luka Doncic, with his numbers, his early playoff numbers, what he's doing, the 28, 8-8 seasons, he's put himself on a possible GOAT path.
I agree.
This early on in his career. He has a long way to go. Don't get me wrong. I am not jumping the gun. But to be a GOAT, you have to set yourself on a path early enough, because you have to have the time to, one, play, get all these get your numbers, get your accolades, things like that. And obviously, the earlier you start with this success, it's going to be the better. He came in the league really young, just like LeBron did. I think he's put himself on a path where years from now, we might not be debating Jordan and LeBron. we might be debating Jordan, LeBron, Doncic. Like it can become a whole party of things. We're talking about who's the best to ever do it. So I think Luka Doncic has that potential. I would love to see him get to the second round this year. Do what you've been doing, get past that first round, at least put up a fight in the second round, maybe go 6, maybe go 7 games. I know the West isn't the best. I know your second best player is being Spencer Dinwiddie. I don't think he's going to be making these buzzer beaters in the playoffs, but I think Luka Doncic has put himself on that path that I think pressure's on him to start pushing just a little bit more, because I think he has that potential to grow to such a height on the ladder of the NBA greats. I believe in him that much.
I really like the angle you took with this Luka comparison, and I love that you brought up his path for greatness. Because I've always thought the same thing with Luka too. Like I have a small short list of players with like GOAT debate potential. Yeah. Like obviously they're not there yet, but they're on a trajectory where like they could reach that conversation one day. Like Giannis is one of them.
He is.
At one point, and it was super early on, but I'm like, Zion could be in this conversation, but I mean, he's obviously taken a step back, but it's not too late for Zion yet. I mean, very young career.
He's got a lot of time, yeah.
But for me, Luka's the front runner in this conversation. If you look at his career, and I'm not comparing play style or anything like this, so Chicago fans, please calm down. But Luka's early career mirrors Michael Jordan's so closely, it's not even funny. Look at his rosters. He's dragging these teams that really there's nothing built around him into the playoffs. Sure, their first round exits. Jordan was taking first round L's left and right. But he was going up against like the Hall of Fame Celtics, arguably at the time, until Jordan's 96 Bulls overtook the title, basically the greatest team of all time. And Luka's going up against like all-time players like Kawhi Leonard with Paul George by his side. Like that's a tough team. That should be a Hall of Fame team. I was thinking those Clipper teams were like title favorites all those years. Yeah. And he, at the time, I mean, obviously it's shifted now, but the West is kind of at the time mirrored what the East was in the 80s when Jordan was coming up. But despite his competition, despite his team, he's still putting up like crazy stats, like what Michael Jordan did in the 80s against the Celtics and stuff like that. So I just like how you brought that up, because to me, Luka's career right now, he's mirrored Jordan. It's mirroring. It's crazy.
I agree. Let's move forward into our next topic here, and we'll move through this one pretty quickly just here in the interest of time. So the race for the scoring title is basically as tight as it's ever been. So obviously LeBron, Embiid, Giannis are all up there right around 30 points per game. So just in your mind, Jarrett, who's taking home that scoring title this year?
It's going to be LeBron. He has nothing. It's a lost season. And he's like, you know what? If this isn't going to work out, I'm just going to get mine. And I'm just going to just score as much as I can and then be like, yeah, here's another feather in my cap for why I'm the greatest player of all time. Because I won a scoring title at 37. Congrats to you, LeBron. Have fun in that 10th seed. You're lucky.
So much resentment. It is going to be LeBron, and it's going to be LeBron because of the 3 teams that these guys are on. None of those teams are more dependent on one man scoring than the Lakers are on LeBron. I mean, Giannis is great. I love Giannis. They don't need him to score 30 points a night most nights to win. Same thing with Joel Embiid now. I mean, it's obviously helps, but I think in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean much. Like you're saying, where LeBron guys are going to try to make it a narrative. Oh, at age 37.
I wasn't saying LeBron guys. I was saying LeBron himself.
It doesn't mean that much. It's a nice little thing to have. In the way that I see it, when LeBron sees something in the league that he has never done before, and he's got a chance to do it, he's going to push for it. So he's never led the league in scoring. He's got a chance to do it. So I think
he has one scoring title. I thought.
I didn't think so.
Let me look this up.
I didn't think
so.
I'm
sorry.
No, you're good. We'll just move on here. So with Chris Paul, he returned last night, and it looks like from the research that I did, the Suns had an 11-4 record without him post All-Star break. So just real quickly here, Jared, are you convinced that the Suns are the team to beat in the NBA?
Oh, without a doubt. I was really interested to see how they'd fare without Chris Paul for whatever stretch of games would be. Turns out Suns are still pretty freaking
Oh,
good.
yeah.
Not only does it give me hope that they can face whatever adversity comes up against them in the playoffs, but beyond this season, when eventually Chris Paul does leave, if they can keep this core of young guys together, this team should be able to compete for probably this entire decade.
Yeah, they look fantastic. I'm absolutely convinced that the Suns are the team to beat right now. And just like you said, they've shown it. They've really reassured since that Paul injury. What concerned me when he went out was how they would fare late game because Chris Paul is such a great closer. But Devin Booker has all of a sudden slowly put his name in the MVP conversation here at the end of the season. He's been playing out of his mind. He's answered that bell and then some. Also, DeAndre Ayton's been playing like a dominant big man, along with how about the up to guard play of Cam Johnson? And I know you're not a big Payne fan, but he's been playing well as well over there. So this team is deep as hell. They're playoff tested. They're hungry. No doubt they should be viewed as the absolute favorites right now to win the NBA championship. And I think a lot of people are going to be supportive of that.
And Devin Booker's also shown us he can kind of fill in for that playmaker role that Chris Paul has avoided in his absence.
Yeah, point guard Devin Booker. Like he started off as a shooting guard, and obviously he plays the two when Chris Paul is there because, I mean, you got the point guard. You don't need to be a point guard. So but when he's out, Devin Booker's a facilitator, man. He's doing everything out there on the floor. So it's been really nice to see Booker's taking that next step that a lot of people were just waiting for him to do because, I mean, he was back there scoring. What did he score? 61 a few seasons ago or something like that? I think he has the highest scoring output since Kobe's 81. So he can definitely put the ball in the hoop, man. So
I wanted to add real quick. LeBron James won the scoring title in Doc Rivers' favorite season. So
he did. Okay. Yeah. Definitely. There we go.
So it shouldn't be too hard for the folks at home to figure out what year that is.
So he's going for 2 then. All right, we got to move on to our last segment here on the TM Up podcast, and that is obviously TM Up. So, Jarrett, who's getting your technical foul this week?
The whole damn Bulls team.
Oh,
I mean,
okay. Let's hear it.
Come on. First off, yeah, we get it. DeMar DeRozan wasn't in, but Zach LaVine. Okay, you know the whole damn Bulls team besides Zach LaVine. Zach LaVine, you're exempt from this fury. Kobe White, I guess too, because you're putting it all out on the floor. Everyone else, though, what is going on? I mean, it's the Pelicans. We need to win every damn game we can. The Raptors and Cavs are only a game behind us. And you guys are giving up games against the Pelicans without Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson? Like, are you kidding me? Jose Alvarado, I think that's his name.
Yeah.
Put us away. It was a 16-point loss or whatever it was. We got put away by a guy that wasn't even on an NBA roster at the start of the season. The dude's like 5'9".
Can he shoot? Yeah, I can shoot.
What is going on?
Dude,
teeing up the Bulls.
Yeah?
I'm teeing up the Bulls.
Oh man, absolutely. It has been a collapse. I mean, the Bulls are definitely limping into the playoffs. It sucks to see because I was excited to see what they were going to do, and you were very adamant on our last podcast. And I put it out there on a TikTok as well. You want the Celtics round 1, so
I do. I still do.
I hope we get that matchup. I hope we do, but.
The Celtics pulled some Space Jam voodoo shit on the Chicago Bulls. They took their talent, or I don't know what's going on right now. So we need a series against them and steal that back.
We'll see, man.
But I still want the Celtics.
Well, we'll see. We'll see if we get that. I would love to see that matchup as well. But I gotta tee up a small minority of NBA fans who just take things way too far. You know, I'm all for cheering against rival teams and trying to get under the other players' skins and doing what you can in the stands to try to, will your team to victory. But there's a line, and you do not cross it. And it was crossed this week with Yusuf Nurkic and what he had to go through, where the headline came out that Nurkic approached the fan and threw his phone, and he was fined $40,000 because of it. And while all that's true, I feel like the underreported thing was what was being said to Yusuf Nurkic. Like he was subject to these, they weren't even chants. They were just one fan that was yelling about his mom and his grandmother, whose grandmother, I think I learned, unfortunately passed away from COVID not too long ago, and was digging in these really personal things for Yusuf Nurkic. I think, these players are human. They have families, they have kids, they have friends outside the game. And this week, it was entirely way too far. Nurkic, in my mind, was way within his rights to grab the phone and throw it. And that fan probably deserved a lot more than just a thrown phone. we have to do better as NBA fans. There's a line that you do not cross. You have to keep everything on the court. I get it. Cheer for your team, boo, chant airball, do the things that fans are allowed to do. But when you get personal, it's not a good look for anybody. And we have to do better as NBA fans, because these, at the end of the day, they're players. They're out there, they're playing a game for your entertainment, and it's not fair and it's not right for you to subject them to that type of treatment. So do better, NBA fans. And I know it's a very small segment of them, but just do better. Do better.
And what's more outrageous, it's like, okay, it's like obviously any trash talk he was going to do, whether Nurkic was playing or not, is outrageous. But Nurkic is in street clothes. He's not even playing.
He's not even on the court.
Why are you going at the man then? Like, what the?
Exactly.
It makes no sense. Also, another lesson, like there was a thread. Somebody found the guy's LinkedIn page.
Mm-hmm.
And if what's getting reported out, like, some of that stuff you might be able to get fired from your job for, because I'm sure people have reached out to his place of employment.
Yeah.
And it's a young guy too. He's
with the way the internet
like
works,
our age too.
Like you put yourself out in that position to, this might happen to you. So, and it's unnecessary. Like you said, he was in street clothes. He wasn't doing anything to affect the game. He was sitting on the bench cheering on his team, which, let's be honest, he's on the Portland Trail Blazers. They don't have much going for him. What you did was completely
Indiana
out of line.
doesn't either.
Well, let's be honest, but this was completely out of line. We have got to do better as NBA fans, but
it's despicable.
It was truly despicable. But thank you guys all for joining us here on the TM Up podcast. Thank you guys all for listening and getting this far through our rambling. So be sure to follow us along on all the social media platforms for fun NBA content throughout the week. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Make sure to share us with your family and friends.